The next hat we're going to decorate is what I've been calling the Papier Mache hat. I wanted to cover it in green because I want this to be sort of a countryside scene, but I don't have any green paper or any green paint or any green anything actually. So I'm going to use this, which I think, this is crepe paper. I think it was green, but it's been left out in the sunshine, so it's gone a bit blue really. Anyway, so I was thinking I would put flour and paste all over this, but if I do that, crepe paper becomes quite fragile when it's wet, and so it sort of will tear and fall apart. So I think what I'm going to do is I've cut this so that it's enough to cover the brim, cover the bowl, and then that's the edge of the brim there. So if I do it there so that it will come to the edge of the brim and then it will fold under and do the underside of the brim as well. It might not be long enough front and back, but we'll give it a go. In fact, if it's not going to be long enough, where is the... So that's the front and that's the back, I think. It's pretty round, but we can bend it anyway. So let's have a go. So what I'm going to do is this, so make it equidistant either side. There we are. I'm going to get an elastic band and I'm going to use this. It wants to ping off, but I'm going to stop it from doing that. So I'm just going to leave it obey. Where you've got the underside of the bowl here, you might find you can just hook the elastic band on the underside of your papier mache bowl part, which you then attached to the brim. So I suggest you do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this with flour and water paste, put the crepe paper down, and then when the crepe paper dries, hopefully that will be sufficiently secure to hold this in place. Right, let's give it a go. Tempted to use my hands, but I'm actually going to use a brush. We can be quite liberal with this, I think. Splash it on. Right. And it doesn't matter that it's not flat, because if this is going to be a countryside scene, I mean, unless you're talking about a pristine lawn in someone's garden, the countryside doesn't have flat lawns. I'm just going to splash this on all round. You can move it a little bit when it's wet, that's alright. It also comes off on your hands, so if you've got a problem with that, wear gloves. Crepe paper always has really, really cheap dye. For this reason, when you do the underside, I'm just going to bob down here. When you do the underside, don't cover this bit here, because that will touch your skin and you'll end up with a green forehead. Which is, well, I don't know, it might be your thing, but not for me personally. Right, I'm nearly all the way round. The dye is even coming out on my brush. You see, the dye is already coming out here on the cardboard brim. Right, splodge that down. Can you a little bit more here? Right, don't move it too much, because as I say, it will tear. Right, that will do. If you've got any dry patches, just splash it down, put it on top as well. Right, I'm going to leave that to dry, and then when it's dry, I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to do the underside. But look, it does dye. I don't know how difficult that is to get off. I'll show you in a minute, I'll find out. But if that bothers you, and also don't touch anything, obviously, because you'll move the dye onto whatever it is you touch. Wear gloves when you do this, rubber gloves. Right, I'm going to leave that to dry and then I will be back. Just a quick catch up on the papier mache hat. It has dried, but it's a bit peculiar all the way around, but since this isn't green anyway, it doesn't really matter. We'll just go with the flow. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put flour paste on the underside, and then where I've got some surplus, I'm going to stick that down. I'm going to cut it here because, as I mentioned before, the dye comes out of this really easily, and it does stain. I've just got some on my hands. So cut it round just back from the headband so that it doesn't touch your forehead, because if you get hot at all or at all sweaty, then I'm afraid you will end up with a green forehead. So I'm just going to quickly put this paste around here, and I suspect it will mark in the same way that it's marked on top, but let's not get fussy because let's just get it done, and then we can decorate over the top of it anyway, so it's not as if it's going to show that much. Right, I'm going to do this. All I'm going to do literally is just fold it in like that and pleat it in where necessary. We can cut the surplus off afterwards. In some places it's just not going to cover it, but we'll just do whatever we can, and if necessary, if it won't stay down, I'm going to just put some pegs along here. Right, I'm going to carry on with this. Again, I'll come back when that's done. Now, I haven't put this out to dry yet because I was just thinking actually it'd be quite helpful for me to show you this, which is I'm going to just cut this bit off here, which is dry, just a surplus bit, and I'm just going to splodge a bit of water paste here and use that to cover most of the gap. There's a little bit here as well. There we are, that's that. And then I'm going to cut this bit off here. And do exactly the same on that side. I might need a bit more than that actually. Let's just quickly do it while you're watching, and then you can see I'm not cheating, I'm doing something else. I'm not quite sure how I'd be cheating, but there we are, that's a bit, I don't need that. So I can cut, oh look, it's going to work out just perfectly actually. Just put a bit more on here. And cover that bit of cardboard there. Now that is going to go out in the garden, and then later I'm going to cut all that off. In the meantime, I'll just put it on here for the moment. Keep still. I am going to, I found this little seam in the newspaper, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut round the top of the daffodils, and I'm going to stand them up going around the brim of the hat. But obviously if I just cut round newspaper it's a bit floppy, so I think what I'm going to do first of all, I've got some of these labels, but if you haven't you can just use other paper and glue, but I'm using these because they're easy, because they're already sticky on one side. And what I'm going to do is before I cut this out, let's move the head so you can see what I'm talking about. Before I cut that out, I'm going to stick labels, and come up to about here, on the rear side. Does that make sense what I'm doing? So I'm sticking labels on the back of the pictures that I'm going to cut out, so that makes them firmer, so that when I do cut them out they won't be all floppy around the brim of the hat. So I'm going to carry on with this. I'm going to cover all of that, and then there's another sheet here. Have a look through the magazines or newspapers or whatever you've got. I found this rather nice little seam. You don't need to have the whole of it, you just cut what you want. So you could either cut the whole thing including the sky, or you could, for example, cut around the tree and then do the top of the house or whatever. Anything like that at all, just to make up a little background around the This is around the brim of the hat, not round my roll of sticky labels. Right, that goes in the garden. I'm going to do my sticky labels and cut out the daffodils. This will be dry and then I'll come back and show you the rest. So we're getting to the end of the Papier Mache bonnet. What I've done, as I said, is I've cut out, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. I've cut out, must be hay fever from all these flowers. I've cut out all of these. I didn't go all the way around, so I found some other pictures of, these are roses, and I've just popped them on like that. As it happens, it's pretty perfect as it goes. That's not the end of it. For this hat, I decided we had to have the Easter chicks in somewhere, so this strange looking mess is actually some shredded paper from our paper shredder. I don't have any straw, but if you don't have anything like this, you can cut these into very fine strips. And then I've actually dyed them yellow. I don't have a yellow dye. I used turmeric, and with turmeric all you do is you put a couple of teaspoonfuls in a small amount of water. Apparently if you put vinegar in it makes it a brighter yellow, but I didn't do that. And this is the sort of colour it comes out. When I first took it out of the garden where it had been drying, it looked quite pale and I was a bit disappointed, but actually I think the sun bleaches it, and if you turn it over you get that nice brighter yellow in top. So the next thing I was going to do, make sure that's down, is fill this with my homemade straw. This is sort of, I guess it's going to be like the nest, if you like, for the little chicks. You can leave some on the bonnet, on the edge of the brim of the bonnet if you like. And there's little chick number one. Actually, that's the big chick, isn't it? And here's little chick number two. And what I was also going to do was final touch, or not quite so final touch actually, is just pop some little Easter eggs in there. You can buy these, this is one of the few things you're going to have to buy, but you can buy them from the food shop, which you are allowed to visit at the moment. And I suggest you buy the ones which are covered in silver paper, A, because they look very pretty, but also because you can use them in your hat for decoration, but then you can also unwrap them and eat them later. Yay! And that's it. So you could leave it there. You could add a ribbon round, or a little bit of straw round the edge there, just to hide the join. And I'm thinking I'm going to add my little Easter bunny, but he's hopped off at the moment. So when I found him, I'm going to get my little Easter bunny, and I think I'll just pop him here. But we'll come back to that and I'll give you a final photo shot of the finished hat.